Imagine it's a Monday morning in the year you turn 65. For decades, this date has been circled in red on the calendar of your mind. It's supposed to be the day you finally arrive. No more 6 a.m. alarms, no more passive-aggressive emails from middle management, and no more trading your sunlight for a cubicle. You're standing on your porch, coffee in hand, looking out at a future that's finally yours. That is the American dream. We've been sold this vision since the day we got our first Social Security card. But I'm here to tell you that for most people watching this, that 65-year-old version of you isn't standing on a porch of freedom. They're standing in the shadow of a ghost. I call it the retirement ghost, and it's a financial lie that is haunting millions of bank accounts without them even knowing it. My name is Ray, and I spend a lot of time obsessing over the math that the financial experts usually skip over because the truth doesn't sell mutual funds. Today, we aren't just talking about saving money. We're talking about an expiration date on a system that was never designed to keep you comfortable. It was designed to keep you working until you're just used up enough to be quiet. Let's start with a reality check. Why 65? Have you ever actually asked where that number came from? It wasn't calculated by a doctor looking at your health or a philosopher looking at the meaning of life. It was a political calculation made by Otto von Bismarck in Germany back in the 1880s. When he set the retirement age, the average life expectancy was around 70. The government's generous plan was only meant to support people for about 5 years before they, passed away. But look at us now in 2026. Science and medicine have done something incredible. They've extended our lives, but our financial systems haven't caught up. If you retire at 65 today, you aren't looking at 5 years of leisure, you're looking at 30. You are effectively asking a pile of cash to survive 3 decades of a predator that never sleeps: inflation. By the way, if you're finding this breakdown helpful and you don't want to miss out on more content that challenges the status quo of your finances, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're diving deep into things they don't teach you in school, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. Now, back to the math. Most people think, if I can just hit $1 million, I'm set. But let's perform some forensic accounting on that dream. If you're 30 today, $1 million in 35 years won't buy you $1 million worth of lifestyle. Because of the way the world is printing money, $100 today will feel like $40 or $50 by the time you're ready to spend it. That nest egg you're working 50 hours a week for, it's shrinking every single day you leave it sitting there. And then there's the physical trade-off. This is the part that really bothers me. The system asks you to give up your 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, the years when you actually have the energy to hike a mountain, travel the world, or play with your kids, to save up for a maybe in your late 60s. You are trading your prime time for decline time. We've been conditioned to think that as long as our 401k balance is going up, we're winning. But if your 401k is going up while your health is going down and your time is being stolen by a job that stresses you into an early grave, is that a win or is it a scam? The retirement ghost wants you to believe that the finish line is at 65, but for many, 65 is the start of a different struggle, the struggle of realizing that the money you have isn't enough to cover the healthcare costs of the body you broke trying to earn that money. We're told to look at the gross number, the big total at the end. But in business, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. Your life is the business. Your profit is the time you actually get to be a human being. And right now, the overhead of waiting until 65 is so high that most people are operating at a massive loss. They're selling their best years at a discount, hoping the ghost will pay them back later. Spoiler alert, he won't. The reason we're in this mess is that the rules of the game changed while we were still playing it. Our parents and grandparents had something that has practically gone extinct: a pension. Back then, you put in your 30 years, the company gave you a gold watch, and they sent you a check every month until you died. The risk was on the company. If the stock market crashed, it was their problem. If you lived to be 100, it was their problem. But in the late 19th century, corporate America pulled off the greatest heist in financial history. They shifted the risk from their balance sheets to your kitchen table. They introduced the 401k and the IRA. Suddenly, you weren't just a worker, you were forced to be a part-time hedge fund manager. Now, if the market tanks the year before you turn 65, that's your problem. The safety net didn't just shrink, it was replaced by a tightrope, and most of us are walking it without a harness. And here is where the math gets really ugly. In 2026, we're dealing with a phenomenon I call the triple threat. It's a combination of stagnant wages, asset bubbles, and the subscriptionification of life. Think about it. In the 1970s, the average house cost about 3 times the average annual salary. Today, in most major cities, it's closer to 10 or 12 times. We are spending a massive chunk of our working years just trying to secure a roof over our heads. We aren't building wealth, we are servicing debt. When you spend your 30s and 40s paying off student loans and 30-year mortgages, you're not investing for retirement, you're just trying to get back to zero. By the time you start seriously saving at 50, the compounding interest clock has already run out of batteries. Then there's the hidden cost of staying alive. The ghost loves to hide in your medical bills. In the US, the average couple retiring at 65 is estimated to need over $300,000 just for healthcare expenses. That's not for fancy cruises or golfing. That's just to keep the lights on in your own body. If you haven't accounted for the fact that health insurance premiums for a 66-year-old are a world away from what you pay now, your nest egg is actually a ticking time bomb. But it's not just about the big numbers, it's the vampire costs of the modern economy. We live in a world where you don't own anything anymore. You rent your software, you lease your car, you subscribe to your entertainment, and in some cities, you basically subscribe to your housing. This creates a permanent floor on your expenses. In the old days, a retiree could downsize and live on almost nothing because their house was paid off and their needs were simple. But in 2026, the floor is rising. You can't downsize your way out of a $300 internet bill, rising property taxes, and the ever-increasing cost of basic groceries. The math of 65 assumes a linear life. You work, you save, you stop. But life in the 2020s is volatile. We have once-in-a-lifetime economic crises every 5 to 7 years. Every time the market corrects or a new AI displaces a sector of the workforce, the ghost pushes that 65-year-old finish line further away. The system wants you to stay in the race. It wants you to look at your retirement account and think, I'm almost there, just 5 more years. But those 5 years usually turn into 10 because the goalposts are on wheels. We are being tricked into a high-churn, low-margin existence. You're processing more money than your parents ever did, but you're keeping less of it. You're a high-revenue business with zero profit. The scary truth? If you follow the standard advice, save 10%, invest in a target date fund, and wait for 65, you aren't planning a retirement. You're planning a catastrophe. You are betting that the world will stay stable, that inflation will stay low, and that your health will hold out long enough to enjoy a few years of freedom before the money runs out. That's not a plan. That's a gamble where the house always wins. So if the old system is broken and the ghost is waiting at the finish line, what do we actually do? We stop running the race by their rules. The solution isn't to work harder or save more in a system that's designed to leak. The solution is to change the metric of your success entirely. We need to stop obsessed with gross income and start obsessing over life margin. Think of your life like a business. A business that makes $10 million but spends $9.9 million is a failing company. One bad month and they're bankrupt. But a business that makes $100,000 and spends $30,000 is a powerhouse. It's robust. It has freedom. Most people are high-revenue, zero-margin individuals. They get a raise, they buy a bigger car. They get a bonus, they move into a more expensive zip code. They are feeding the ghost, giving him more leverage over their time. The first step to killing the retirement ghost is to ruthlessly optimize your real hourly wage. We talked about this before, the math of what you actually take home after taxes, commuting, and decompression spending. Every dollar of work-related expense you cut is a dollar of pure freedom. If you can negotiate working from home 2 days a week, you haven't just saved gas money. You've clawed back hours of your life that were being stolen for free. You've just given yourself a massive raise without your boss paying you a cent more. But the biggest shift is psychological. We have to kill the idea of the big retirement at 65 and replace it with micro freedoms today. Why wait until you're 65 to see the world or spend time with your family? If you can build a life where you have a high margin, you can afford to take mini retirements every few years. You can pivot to a lower stress job that pays less but requires only 20 hours a week. In the 2026 economy, time wealthy is the new rich. Being able to go for a walk at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday is a luxury that most millionaires in high-rise offices can't even dream of. The goal is to build a gap. That gap between what you need to live and what you bring in is where your freedom lives. When that gap is small, the ghost owns you. When that gap is large, you own the ghost. Start by performing a brutal audit this weekend. Look at your bank statement not as a list of things you bought, but as a list of hours you traded. That $1,000 phone, if your real hourly wage is $20, that's 50 hours of your life. Is it worth 50 hours of sitting in meetings you hate? When you start seeing prices in life hours instead of dollars, your relationship with consumerism changes instantly. You stop buying things to tolerate the job, which allows you to need the job less, which eventually gives you the power to walk away. The system relies on you being too exhausted and too busy to do this math. It wants you to stay in the cycle of earning and spending until there's nothing left. But you have a choice. You can keep chasing a finish line that's being moved by people who don't care about you, or you can step off the track right now. The retirement ghost only has power if you believe in the lie that 65 is the magic number. It isn't. Freedom doesn't have an age, it has a price. And that price is usually much lower than the experts want you to believe, provided you're willing to stop buying into the status symbols of a life you're too tired to enjoy. Don't sell your prime years for the promise of decline years. Build your margin, protect your time, and start living the life you were promised, not in 30 years, but today. Because at the end of the day, the only real wealth you have is the number of hours you own. Don't let the ghost steal them. Thanks for sticking with me through this. If this made you rethink your 401k or your daily commute, do me a favor and share it with someone who's currently running on that hamster wheel. Let's help each other wake up. I'll see you in the next one.